name is Vince McHugh.
And I'm Ned Bannon.
We are systems engineers at NECS, and today we want to show you some basic troubleshooting steps that you can try if you find that you can't print to your network printer. We purposely tailored this video for an end user or someone who's new to help desk.
This video is primarily aimed at helping you resolve printing problems on network printers, although some of the troubleshooting tips will also work for troubleshooting a desktop printer. Now, what we mean by a desktop printer is one that's connected to a PC or a Mac, usually by a USB cable. When we say network printer, we're talking about a printer or multi-function copier that's connected to your network with an Ethernet cable, one of these guys, also known as a Cat5 cable. Your network printer may be shared HP printer or a Canon or a Konica Minolta multi-function copier. And by multi-function we mean it can print, scan, copy, and maybe even fax. Today we're going to be primarily focusing on printing.
We're also assuming that your printer or copier did print at one time. If it's never printed, it just may not be set up correctly or set up at all, and you might need help on that. You might need a systems engineer or your network administrator to help you on that. If your printer did print at one time but doesn't now, one of the most common things that happens is your printer is set up for DHCP, which means it'll get a network address every time it wakes up on the network. Doesn't mean it always gets the same network address. You may be printing to the original address. It may have changed since then. Be careful though. If you turn DHCP off and you assign a manual IP address, you need to make sure it's one nobody else is using. And sometimes this can be problematic. If you assign it and somebody else has one, you may have issues with that. So you may want your systems engineer or your network admin to help you on that. If you are in a small or home office with just a few PCs and the IP address of your printer or copier is 192.168.1.10, let's say, you could probably, and I do stress the word probably, give your printer an address, a manual address of 192.168.1.237 and be safe. I would ping it first to see if that address is available before assigning it. If you don't know how to ping, you may want to call your network support person. Assigning an IP address incorrectly can cause problems of its own, so do that at your own risk.
To get the most out of this video, you may want to watch it through one time and then go back and replay it and pause it after each of the troubleshooting tips so you can see if the tips fix your problem or at least show you where the problem lies. There can be many things that can stop you from printing to a network printer, even if the printer itself is working. The problem could be with the network. Maybe you can't reach the printer. It could be with your PC or Mac. The application you're using, like Word or Acrobat, might have a problem. Or maybe it's a specific file that's having an issue. We could look at each of these issues and give you some simple tests that you can try to see where the problem lies.
Let's start with network issues. We're going to assume that both your PC and your printer are powered on. When we say PC, we mean personal computer. It could be a Mac, could be a Windows-based PC. We're just going to use the phrase PC to mean personal computer. Here are a couple of things you can try. Reboot your PC or Mac. Go through the steps to power it down and don't just put it into sleep mode. Power it down completely and then power it back up. You should also reboot your printer. Physically turn it off. If it's a single function printer like an HP 4050, let's say, just turn the switch off, count to 10, and flip it back on. If your network printer is a multifunctional device, there are likely two on and off switches. The first switch is usually near the operation panel on the front, you know, where all the numbers are. And that's usually just going to put it into sleep mode. That's not really enough. The real AC power switch is on the side of the digital copier. Sometimes it's hidden on the front panel, but there's usually a rocker arm switch. Each multifunctional device is a little different on how it's recommended to power them down. With some, like the Canon image runner, they want you to hold that on and off switch on the operation panel for 10 seconds, and then the screen will walk you through a shutdown procedure. On the newer Canon Image Runner Advances, they have a smart rocker arm switches. If you flip it off, it'll actually go through a proper shutdown. You'll see the screen say wait and timeout, and then it finally shuts down. Bottom line is you have to get the MFD, the multifunctional device, multifunctional copier, to completely shut down and then turn it back on.
Really want to make sure that the Ethernet cable is securely plugged into your network printer or PC before you reboot them. This will ensure that they wake up on the network. Some network cards just don't want to start up unless they have an active connection to a hub or a switch. Double check to make sure the network cable is securely plugged in, and we actually have a clip of that for you.
Okay, on the copier, oftentimes you'll find that your Ethernet cable is on the back side here. So you can check to see if it's secure. If you're not sure, pull it out, just release that little lever there, and when you put it back in, you should actually hear that click. That click tells you it's secure. That way you know that both the copier and your PC are now securely on your network.
Did you hear the click? Make sure you heard the click when you plugged it in. Even if it looks okay, it won't hurt to unplug and replug it to check it. And then make sure you obviously reboot your PC and your printer. Do the click check before you actually reboot those devices. If you've rebooted both your PC and your network printer and still can't print, let's move on to the next tip. The first question is, can anyone else in your home or office print to this printer? If the answer is yes, your problem is probably not the printer, but your PC. If the answer is no, then the printer is more likely the issue. Try changing the Ethernet cable that connects your printer to the network, then reboot the printer again. Now, different environments, some different rules come into play. Most Macs print what's called peer-to-peer. They print right from the Mac to the device. PCs and larger offices more typically would go through what's called a print server, which is another computer on the network that basically kind of acts as an intermediary between your laptop or PC and the actual print device.
So if nobody else can print, you could have a problem with your print server.
Absolutely.
Right.
If you don't have another PC to print to this printer, then the answer to the first question is, I don't know. Don't just assume no one else can print to the print device. You know what they say when you assume.
Right. Well, let's examine what happens if other people can print to the same printer that you can't print to. Can you get to the internet on your PC? That's my next question. Go to your PC, open up a web browser like Internet Explorer or Firefox, and go to a web page you've never been to before. The reason we want to go to one you've never been to before is that way we know you don't have images cached. It either will make it to that web page or it won't. If you can't think of one, then you can type www.necs.biz, and that'll open my company's website. You can take a look at that. If you see the NECS website pop up, then you know that your PC is able to get out to the internet. That also means that you're likely fine on your internal network or your intranet. If you can't get out to the website, then you have a networking issue rather than a printing issue. When you get that resolved, call the support person who supports your computers and say, I can't get out on the internet, I can't print. That will lead them in the right direction. If you just say you can't print, they may think that you're fine on the internet, and that doesn't seem to be the case. Once you fix that problem about getting out on the internet, it's likely that your printer will work again. But if you go to www.necs.biz and you see our website, we're going to assume that your PC is fine on the network.